The Jaipur bookmark reflects the core values of the publishing industry, and it brings together some of the greatest publishing professionals from around the world.
जयपुर बुकमार्क एक ऐसा प्लेटफॉर्म है जहाँ पे कि बिजनेस को समझने का एक अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलता है. सो आई थिंक JBM इज़ समथिंग विच इज़ फैंटास्टिक एंड पीपल हु डोंट नो अबाउट इट, उनको आना चाहिए, उनको इसका हिस्सा बनना चाहिए.
Jaipur BookMark. Come and celebrate literature, meet authors, agents, publishers. Join us at the Jaipur BookMark.
On behalf of Jaipur BookMark Festival Advisors, Aditi Maheshwari Goyal, Namita Gokhale, Naveen Kishore, Neeta Gupta and Urvashi Bhutalia, festival producer Sanjoy Roy and all my colleagues at Team Wakats, we welcome you to the 8th edition of the Jaipur BookMark. The Indian publishing industry has been rapidly growing with the world's attention converging on it. Creating a meaningful B2B platform for publishers was thus essential, and the Jaipur BookMark was conceived to run parallel to the Jaipur Literature Festival. In the 7 years since its inception, JBM has fast emerged as a nerve center for the South Asian publishing industry and is indeed a focal point where books mean business. In 2020, the world grappled with a pandemic and businesses learned to reinvent themselves and adapt to an entirely new digital idiom. JBM 2021 is being held as a virtual event and, as always, continues to bring together all stakeholders of the business of books over meaningful discussions and far-reaching resolutions. A warm welcome to all of you to the session at the virtual JBM 2021. Embracing Nonlinearity, Immersive Storytelling in the Digital Age. Sheikha Kapoor and Vani Tripathi Tikku in conversation. The 21st century has seen the birth of a new kind of entertainment, hyper-personalized, private and powered by the internet. Digital content has captured the zeitgeist of our times as well as the collective attention of India and is streamed on mobile devices, computers and smart TVs. Unlike traditional cinema and TV shows, digital content aid on OTT platforms, shuffle chronologies, weave in multiple subplots and house stories that can't be accommodated on the big screen. But what is the path that such non-linear storytelling will walk on in the future? Is immersive storytelling which allows users to become a part of a piece on the anvil? Will video games and PC games now become central to a web series? What can the entertainment industry do to adapt itself to these rapid technological changes? A panel of content creators, industry leaders and technologists discuss the impact of technology and the rise of non-linear storytelling. Sheikha Kapoor. After leaving his corporate career as a chartered accountant to pursue the arts, Sheikha became an award-winning director, producer and entrepreneur. More recently, Sheikha became president of the Film and Television Institute of India and co-founder of the digital startup company Qki. Vani Tripathi Tikku, an actor and a producer by profession, is one of the youngest ever members of the Central Board of Film Certification of India. She has been a socio-political activist, and her campaigns and outreach programs have focused on encouraging women's participation in politics and bringing the youth to a universal platform that addresses issues including education, empowerment and employment. She has been closely involved in theatre films and television, having worked in projects in India as well as abroad. Over to you, Vani.
Thank you for that kind introduction, and thank you, Jaipur Literature Festival and Jaipur BookMark, for having me and the most iconic, enigmatic filmmaker of our time, Sheikha Kapoor. Sheikha, welcome. It's such a joy to see you again. Early morning for you in the United Kingdom and little early in the evening in India. How are you?
really well, filming, working, happy, not content, because the day I get content, I'll stop. I'm not content, but I'm happy. And then yearning and longing and novel ways of being creative.
And congratulations in these times of COVID where technology is becoming a more important debate around us. You've already finished 80% of your new film. And I'm sure it's been challenging, but also you are one who's always taken challenges head on. How has it been, this journey of doing this new film in times like these?
It's been very exciting because I'm working with some brilliant actors, and so it's been very exciting working with them. It's been very exciting. Actually, facing challenges is very exciting. Facing obstacles is what drives you. The greater the obstacle, the more your creativity comes up. What creative people tend to do a lot is to create vacuums in front of them and then try and fill those vacuums with their creativity. So it's actually how a vacuum that you create in front of you sucks you in. So we create vacuums and then we yearn and then we try and fill those vacuums that we create for ourselves with our creativity. That's how we work. Right?
I couldn't have gotten a more creative and innovative answer from you than that one. But Shekhar, recently you and I co-authored this report or a research study that we did on non-linear storytelling and the digital realities around us. Now, Shekhar, through the course, and I was lucky to have you in India for those 10 months of the global lockdown due to the pandemic. We discussed the inflection points of history where we looked at how innovation and development have had a profound impact on the cultural landscape of our time. I mean, there was a time when radio was invented, then the printing press, and then, of course, the film, the cinematic, marvel of our time. So, human creativity has been expressed and communicated through various multifold ways in the past so many decades. Today, we are in the middle of another such inflection point. We are in the middle of exponential increase in the connectedness and also the way we are computing non-linear storytelling around us. You were a great peek into this new idiom for me also when I was doing this. So my first intervention for the session today would be that how do you see these new technological advancements which are happening, the advent of the new digital narrative, how will it impact writers, directors, and storytellers around us?
All art, all writing, all directors, all art is storytelling. It's the way we perceive life around us. If we can't tell a story, we cannot perceive. So we perceive everything. Even me looking at you right now, I'm telling myself a story, otherwise I can't perceive you. So storytelling has been inherent in ourselves. And the expression of art and storytelling has always been a technological expression. You give a child a set of crayons, and that child would take those crayons and start drawing on your walls, and you get a child anything. So the technology of the child was the crayon. It was still technology. It was still when Lata Mangeshkar sang into a microphone, that was technology. We've always expressed ourselves to wider audiences through technology. What happened really was a technology that came that actually gave all creative expression to wider audiences was the Gutenberg press. And
Mm,
what happened with technology at that time was you couldn't make any form of storytelling unlimited.
mm,
When I talk about the Mahabharata was never one story. There must have been a million versions of Mahabharata because it was spoken. So, one person would speak to another, then each person would interpret the Mahabharata and tell it again and again and again. Then somebody decided to publish it, you know. But publishing cannot, at that time, could not be infinite, right? So publishing had to confine it, and that's how what we call plot arose. And that's how the idea of three act structures arose. So it was a technology giving wider accessibility to your stories, but on the other hand, containing them because it had that particular format. So what is happening now? with the internet and with all the digital technologies is that we are now able to go back to the idea of unending stories. All right. So
Hmm.
why unending stories? We say a story has to have an end. Why should it have an end? Universe doesn't have an end.
Hmm.
You yearning doesn't have an end. Art doesn't have an end. Even in the paintings that I see, every time I see a painting, the painting is not just what the painter painted. It doesn't end. It is how I stand in front of the painting and I interpret it. So it continues and it continues, and somebody else interprets it. So we have what digital now has provided us is two things. The internet has provided us with being able to go back to never ending stories. So in fact, with all the controversy over Twitter and Instagram and all of that, that's part of a never ending story, right?
Hmm.
But we have, as if I want to tell a story today, I could actually create another Mahabharata. I could seed a Mahabharata. Then somebody else could tell that story, and then somebody else could tell that story, and somebody else that could tell the story. So, what is good about that? What is good about that is the fact that we are going back to interpretational ideas. We're going
Hmm.
back to the idea of what I call the rainforest of stories. Why? Because you plant one seed and a tree grows, and a tree grows and the creeper grows, and the creeper goes and then feeds off the tree and takes the sun. But because it takes the sun, it knows that if it doesn't give part of its sun to the tree will fall and the creeper will fall. And just this
Hmm.
one idea of interdependability is what creates a rainforest. So, how about we have the opportunity now with the technology we have is to create a rainforest. So, when I now tell a story, let's say on a digital format to you, what I would like to you is to give you a seed idea. So, mine becomes a
Hmm.
seed idea, let's say to young people around. So, even the world that I create on, say, on an OTT platform, that becomes the seed idea on which, with the technology available to us today, we can invite people to create their own worlds within my world. And
Yes.
then on, and other people can create their world within that world. And it can go on and on and on. And it becomes a medium of collective expression, but each expression has its own individuality. But what started it was the seed idea. But
Hmm.
so we've got so used to the idea of this is my book, this is my IP, this is mine. I think we have the opportunity to say, this is not mine. Actually, in life, nothing is yours. So why
Hmm.
must stories be yours? Why must a painting be yours? Why must an IP be yours? But of course, the legal profession is going to have a terrible time now to say how. But if we really want to create and use this new digital seeding idea that I'm talking about, and we have the technology to create worlds and allow people to walk into those worlds and create their own, and then the one they've created becomes the second seed, the rainforest of storytelling, the rainforest of ideas. And so I think that, of course, so much has changed, and the opportunity to change is so high that in that opportunity to change, the legal profession is going to have a tough time creating an IP. But then I say, if Einstein had an IP around the theory of relativity, science, Mahabharata was never had an IP. It belongs to everybody. So we have the ability to go back to belonging to everybody. You know, so these are fundamental questions about ownership that it will challenge. But I would say that if I own the seed, and I create the seed, what is it? What do I want to own? So all those questions come up, this sense of ownership. Ultimately, even all we live in a world not of nations, we live in a world of cultures,
Hmm.
right? It is cultures what define how the space that our minds exist in. And there's a big battle going on in the world right now. What is nationalism? What is culture? What is nationalism and culture? And there's a constant battle going on. You seed something, you're seeding a new culture. You can seed a new culture, right?
Hmm.
We get affected by new cultures, we get affected by new ideas and new thoughts. So there is a huge opportunity coming up now. And I think that those, what we say OTT platforms, we say theatrical, we say movies, we say books, but let's just say ideas, let's say
Hmm.
thoughts, let's say seed stories, let's say rainforests, let's say basic technology allows us to do that.
So,
That's
Shekhar, at this zeitgeist of change, one thing you constantly spoke about when we were writing this report was immersion, immersive storytelling. And you've always argued that Mahabharata is a wheel within a wheel within a wheel. You constantly have spoken about stories which entwine each other, collaborate within the essence of where they belong to, and yet they could, be separated from each other and, you know, portray a completely different picture. So, India being the land of Kathavachaks that we are, every nook and corner of our country has a story. I mean, the stories we grew up with, the stories of the Dada Dadi, and the Nana Nani kahanis that we grew up with as children, the various diverse landscape, the big diverse landscape of this country with so many billion stories in it. Does this cusp of change mean a big change for India as a storytelling nation? Or we are already so used to our tradition and our fantastic way of, telling story as in the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, that there will be nothing new that will be happening for us. How do you look at it? What is the way forward here for us as a country?
Artists, let me talk about immersion first. Artists have now got used to the fact that I'm creating a film. That's the film, you're the audience. Immersion is, that's a film, you're the audience. Walk into my film, you become my film becomes you. That's immersion. So the separation, the loss of separation between art and the viewer of art, the loss of separation between the artist and the art and you viewing the art. You become the art becomes you, is what immersiveness is all about. So you become the story. You are not the listener to the story. You are the storyteller itself. So that is the loss of separation. And my grandmother used to do that anyway. When she used to tell me stories, I used to go off into my own world. We forgot that. If my grandmother would tell me a story, she would tell me the story and I would dream and I would dream off into the world till she got emphatic and emphatic. I came back to what she was saying and I would listen to that emphasis and go back into my own storytelling and then go back and come back. We as children did that all the time. So immersiveness is going back to that idea that you the listener of the story and the storyteller all become the same. That's
Yes.
immersive.
Hmm.
Talking about India, India is, because of its cultural diversity, I haven't come across another land anywhere where there are so many diverse cultures, and therefore there's so many stories to tell. If you look at the influence, after all, great stories are influential, right? And what will happen to us as a culture? Also remember that the new technology is is actually propagated first by very young people. We probably have the largest number, just absolute number of teenagers in the world. In, I would say, not our nation, I wouldn't say country, but our nation in our culture,
Hmm.
right? And because propagation of technology and new media and in immersive media is first taken over young people. And the young people of India are pretty immersed in our stories and in our culture. And there will be new forms of our stories. So it's not just the telling of the stories that exist, it's a reinterpretation of our stories that forms the new culture. For example, and then that's the greatest thing because any culture, any language, for example, if it does not go on reinterpreting itself, it'll die. Any culture that if it does not keep reinterpreting itself, science reinterprets itself. Otherwise, science will be dead. Why are you and I not speaking Sanskrit?
Hmm.
We say, oh, we have to, there's an origin language called Sanskrit. Why is the world not speaking Latin?
Hmm.
Because Latin has allowed itself to reinterpret itself into many, many languages. So therefore, we will be allowing through this technology to our what we call the key stories, our base stories, and allow these base stories to be reinterpreted. After all, Star Wars was a base story based very much on our culture. So base
Yes.
stories keep getting reinterpreted. May the force be with you. How often have you and I, in our language, heard that as a base story? May the force be with you. That's a reinterpretation of one of our stories, right?
Hmm.
So it's if with our teenage population, I think that our culture can become a major force of storytelling in our world in terms of the way our young people reinterpret it, use technology to propagate it and to propagate, not say, okay, come on, guys, let's all read the written Mahabharata or the written Ramayana, but reinterpretation and reinterpretation and reinterpretation of the fundamental ideas and the seeds of those stories. That's where we can go. That's where it's exciting. And we are heading, I think, very much. We talk about a world with arms and world with conflict. I think we are in what I call influence economies. We say we are $1 trillion economy. I say we are an influence economy. We are a culture economy. With that, the potential of a culture economy. Our trillions and much more worth than trillions and trillions of dollars are within what our nation is the worth of our culture and our storytelling.
So, speaking of reinterpretation and the economy part, one of the big segments that you gave us a big, sneak peek into was gaming, augmented reality, and also artificial intelligence. And you said that, and you constantly said this over time, that why are we looking at a robo walking into our lives as artificial intelligence? Everything that happens around us, including the algorithms which rule our lives within the social media segments, which are so vastly used by the teenage population you referred to. So, Shekhar, gaming is a multi-million dollar industry today, and it has a mind of its own. It is intersecting into various parts of storytelling all across the world. How do you see gaming becoming the centerpiece of this immersive storytelling that we have argued in the report? One, that. And number two, within the universe of OTT platforms, which has become the new normal because of this dystopia called COVID, and everybody locked up for the past 11 months, also collectively viewing content on the OTT platforms. Is there a new normal which is going to emerge as far as the gaming segment globally is concerned?
Yeah. I'm very afraid of defining anything because the moment we define gaming, then we start to say gaming engines, and then we know what gaming engines are. And the use of the technology of gaming, which is what the gaming engine is, to provide immersive storytelling. So, yes, the OTT platforms today will find themselves lost because what other platforms will come is provide me, let's say, a Game of Thrones could be a gaming engine, right? It's a gaming engine. You enter the Game of Thrones and you create your own story, which is what gaming is about. Unfortunately, a lot of gaming is violent. It's about shoot me up and things.
Hmm.
But now we have gamings which are psychological games and things like that. But in a simple way, I say that Game of Thrones is no longer a narrative with a script and characters.
Hmm.
Game of Thrones is a gaming series that you come into and you create your own little world in Game of Thrones, and then you create your own little world. I think that's going to be the new normal is the creation and immersion of worlds. And why that will always become the new normal is because fundamentally it provokes your imagination. We as human beings, we need our imagination provoked. We need an outlet for our imagination, constant imagination. I mean, what is thought but an imagined thing, an imagined perception? And so when I ask somebody, who are you? Each time you say to me who I am, right, it's just another thought. It's another perception and a perception after perception after perception after perception. That's why gaming is so exciting. And that's why gaming is going to take over. And artificial intelligence is the two ways. Artificial intelligence has been around for a long time. I mean, if you look at the way cars are manufactured today, those robots that are putting, that's artificial intelligence. But we have another idea of artificial intelligence in storytelling. Can artificial intelligence be the center of you? You have an artificial intelligence friend, artificially intelligent. So you have a friend that you relate to. And can you have several artificial intelligences that surround you that you can keep bouncing off? And the idea that artificial intelligence is there's something that is alien to us, it's not true. It's been around all the time. Artificial, anything it's called machine learning, it's a machine learning tool. That's all it
Yeah.
is, right? And artificial intelligence, because of the computing power of computers, right? And the power of its coding ultimately, and the power of storage and the cost of storage. Because the computing power and the speed of computing power, artificial intelligence will replace a lot of things. Like, okay, let's take animation, for example. I can Ultimately, artificial intelligence will do that. I can tell a story, and the AI machine can actually put it down and create an animated film out of just me speaking. That's amazing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm going to tell a story, and the AI machine will just create the thing that I can put on television, that I can put here and I can put there. So or fundamentally, an artist can talk the painting to the AI machine,
Yes.
and
Yes.
the AI
Yes.
machine will create the painting for you. You know,
I remember this one.
coming up. So the reason I'm saying is that today we talk about censorship, and I'm saying, how are you talking about censorship of films? So 95% to 96%. Even if you look at the world, 95% of the viewership of video, if you like, is neither on cinema, neither on OTT platforms. It's on YouTube.
Yes. True.
It's on gaming. So this
Mm.
constant idea we have that OTT is taking over. No, OTT is certainly in the US. It's not more than 5% of viewership. Cinema and
Mm.
OTT combined. Yeah.
Mm.
So it is going to be what I call immersive, and that's what technology is allowing us to be immersive. The way I said, I'm talking to you as you and I are talking. We are currently, friends of mine, we are trying to develop something that is musical, that ultimately, remember we had a phone when we were kids. We used to have this phone. I used to take that phone apart to see what is it that I speak into
What
this.
is yes, I know.
Yeah, it was
I
technology.
know.
It was the vibration of my voice that was being transmitted into electronic signals that were transmitted to you, and you had the similar device on the other side, and that vibration turned it back into the vibration of
Yes.
that turned it back into voice. Now
Right.
imagine if I'm talking to you and the vibration of my voice is turned into music.
Yes.
Music. So
Yes.
you and I having this conversation, we should soon be able to get a musical interpretation of our conversation. And given
Mm.
that music is the first fundamental imaginative, provocative idea, because the very idea of Om is a musical idea. The very idea of our interpretation of the Big Bang is Om, was the sound of the Big
Yes.
Bang.
The Brahmanads.
Yeah,
Also the Brahmanads. Yeah.
yeah. So what there are theories, scientific theories of the universe and the creation. All creation is a musical sound. But now
Mm.
imagine that I don't have to speak to you. My words are created into something far more imaginative than language can ever do, because language itself becomes a huge barrier in expression. That's why
True.
poetry is important. That's why art is important, because it goes beyond language. But now imagine what comes out of me is words, but what is you get is a musical interpretation of emotion, of ideas and words, everything together. You say, oh yeah, Sheikha's saying something really, really effective to me because it's music to you. And over a year, your conversation, my conversations can be a symphony of music. So, there's all these fundamental, beautiful ideas that are coming up that we can, so we in the way we relate to our lives, because right now we've been trained to, kahani hai. It's a story, it's a film, it's a things. All that is going to be broken down. That we, as I said, we relate to each other through music. My thoughts become music to you, and you reinterpret my music of thoughts into your thoughts. Now imagine that world.
So, talking of imagination and visualization and the intonation of sound, we are talking within a lit fest. I mean, one of the biggest in the world, the Jaipur Literature Festival and Jaipur BookMark. One of the things that has always been debated is that when you read a book, it's your mind which is interpreting the imagery. It is creating sounds. If it's like trees being blown away during a hurricane, is a sound that you read in a book which you create in your mind. So it is that sense of imagery that you create. Increasingly, for the digital universe, we are seeing book acquisitions becoming a new normal. There are loads and loads of books, graphic novels. I mean, you've also been a part of that universe. You were creating a lot of
Comic.
graphic novels. Yeah, you and finally, if it would have turned into an animation or a film, it would have sort of changed form. So, is this narrative becoming now more collaborative and comprehensive? Whereas book acquisitions or graphic novels, as we say, page to screen, becoming the new reality? Or it yet would be independent paradigms of me reading a book and finding my own sense of visual imagery and the sound and what I create in my head versus what I see on screen or in my palm or on an OTT platform. How do you see this playing out?
You asked two questions that have two fundamental ideas. A great book creates imagery in your mind, creates sounds. Why? Because the experience that is created for you by a very, very good writer is fundamental provoking your sense of experience relating to your life. If you didn't have the experience of some form of the experience that the writer had in his or her writing, it would not mean anything to you. Put the book down, right?
Right.
The other question you're saying is that novels and written pieces of work that are popular are increasingly be adapted into books is corporate lack of a sense of fear. कि यार जो
Hmm.
it's really what do I make? I don't know. Oh, let's make something that has already been successful and turned it in. Really, it's
Hmm.
it's just an age-old thing. Let's remake a film. Let's make a book. Let's. It's not a bad thing. Some great novels have been adapted into films and series and things. But my great, I have a thing with the Jaipur Literacy Festival. I can say that right now. 95% of the world's publishing is coming on social media and not in firm books, not just
Hmm.
in terms of not just in terms of self-publishing. If you read some of the great people that write on Instagram, for example, why is Instagram not a publishing tool? Why do you say the Jaipur Literary Festival, great literary works, short literary works? We imagine a novel because we got used to the idea of a big, long novel. Why is a literary work can't be short? Why can't it be short as a tweet?
Absolutely.
Actually, we work short, and sometimes people I follow on Instagram to write brilliant stories that you can read in 2 minutes or 3 minutes. And some of them are the best. That's where publishing is really happening. That's where it's also happening because it's democratically published. It's the idea is imagine if you write a book, it'll take you years to actually get a publisher to put the money behind it, release it, publish it. Okay, so now people now have, Amazon will self-publish for you, all of that. But what I often get asked when I write on my Instagram, why aren't you writing a book? I said, but I am. Thing that I write on my Instagram is a short little story is a never-ending book. Why do I need to actually publish a book and go to a publisher, take my stories and go through it? I write every day. I am publishing on the internet. My Instagram is a publishing tool, or my Twitter something used to be. Now, of course, Twitter's got like it's become a tool of conflict. But yeah, used to be. So yeah, I'm publishing every day.
So finally, Shekhar, we are at the cusp of this change, and one of the things you predicted long ago that the non-linearity part of storytelling
Yeah,
is what it.
let me talk about non-linearity. We've got people used to the fact that a story is linear.
Yes.
You know, this happens. Once upon a time, the very word we say, once upon a time, it's not linear. Imagine
Mm,
the point of time. But thereon it becomes linear. Why should storytelling be linear? What
mm,
is this idea of linearity? When I say non-linearity, the imagination, say, of a child, it goes chaotically, goes around in circles,
mm,
and we keep trying to straighten it up into a straight line. And then we get the child's mind used to a straight line, and that
mm.
linearity becomes the addiction to a straight line. Actually, the universe is not a straight line. There's
Yes.
nothing straight line. It's only a straight line because we make it so in our heads, in our mind, in our publishing and everything. It has to be a straight line. So one of the things that technology is going to do is give us the idea of You go to in the mountain, let's say you stop in the middle of a mountain and you look around yourself. You see a beautiful mountain, you see snow, you see the sunrise, you see the earth, you see cattle grazing, you see this and you see that. Look what I've done. I put it into linear fashion. Ye dekha, fir ye dekha, fir ye
Hmm.
dekha, fir ye dekha. You see this and you see this. And why have I made it linear? Because that's how our language is. But actually, it all exists at the same time. It's random. Our existence is chaotic, our existence is random. So when you tell a story, even my camera moves and says, "Oh, how beautiful it is." It goes, "Look at those sheep grazing, look at the mountain, look at the snow." I immediately made it linear for you, right? But it's not linear. So what the new technology is allowing you, when I say you go into the world, and that's what gaming also allows you to an extent. But it forces you to be linear because they go, if you're in a shoot me up game, oh, the enemy is coming from here, the enemy is coming from here. It's not really that imaginative. Imaginative is wherever you look is something that you piece together as a series of experiences. But your series of experiences being on that top of the mountain is not a linear experience. It's an experience of existence. And that's where technology is allowing us to go.
So chaos is non-linear, Shekhar, right?
Completely. Completely.
That's
Because
why,
existence is
Shekhar Kapoor, you exist in chaos and you exist very well. But just one little quip on the word chaos. India is supposed to be a chaotic country. When you look from the outside and when you're not looking deep within, everything looks very chaotic. So many colors, so many stories, so many people, so many diverse voices. But as you go deeper and deeper into the cultural nuance of the country that we belong to, the storytelling cultural nuance, increasingly it looks like India is going to be at the cusp of a big cultural export. Our stories, and you said this all along, that's why I'm finally asking you this. You always said we were the greatest Kathavachaks. Our immersiveness was so diverse that it obviously took the West and the other parts of the world to understand what immersion and what non-linearity and what Indian storytelling meant. Where is this chaos exported outside going to take us? Is it going to be explosion that is going to occur? Or is it going to get fragmented? You've always said compartmentalizing is very easy for the West. But we are a country of curves and bends and rounds and semicircles. Where is this going to finally head? I'm not being definitive. I'm just asking where the chaos is going to lead us.
I think it's really important right now to redefine the word chaos, and that's where language is so limited. The moment you say chaos, you think of people running around shooting guns at each other or using. But the nature of our world is chaos. It's actually, it's very well defined in the Tandav dance. The dance, Tandav dance of Shiva, it's unpredictable. It's chaotic. The creation of destruction. Of course, then we give it a very wide thing. But within our own selves, within our atoms, deep within, if you go in, the universe replicates itself chaotically and replicates itself chaotically. Yet there are patterns. And those patterns are defined by idea of time. But that's another discussion for you and me. So we need to look at everything around us is chaotic, random, chaotic,
Yes,
you
yes.
know, with a larger pattern. Shiva's dance of Tandav actually represents that very much. Creation, preservation, destruction, all happening at the same moment. So if all is happening, after all, if you ask a scientist when did time begin, they'll say fragment of moment after the Big Bang. Then you say, where was time before that? It didn't exist. But if it
True.
didn't exist, it was never. So the question of chaos needs to be redefined as things happening at the same moment. Now, secondly, your next question is we are a circular culture. That circularity really goes really well with the new technology. The new technology allows us, our storytelling, to be more circular. A theme within a theme within a theme within a theme, all
Yes,
happening at the same time.
yes.
And that's where we will come out as a culture that has created of huge fundamental ideas of storytelling. And that's where it's so exportable, because when you start telling if you are conflicting the source of structure and linearity, the source of circularity is like water, linearity is like stone, right? So water, which is the way our stories are moving around like water, will go around the stone and go. And the stone will not be able to withstand the water, if I use that metaphor.
So, Shekhar, finally, with this document that we could do with you, one thing which has emerged is that there's such little domain expertise in understanding the digital manifolds of the world. In the past 11 months, we had a pushed ecosystem created where we got engulfed by the digital storm. We were all hauled up inside our homes. People were working from home. You and I are talking virtually. We are not in Jaipur right now, physically in front of a lakh odd people. So there is this messaging which has changed from the physical to the virtual. Will our stories also, will they remain that human touch, that sensitivity, the feel of the skin, as we say? Because we are so many people, we rub against each other, we also get pushed against each other, and so on. Will our stories also become separate as realities, or will it become more engulfed with the new normal of being uh, prescriptive virtually? How will it happen?
I think you're talking about two little things. You're assuming I have to assume that this COVID infection will end, right?
Yes.
And we'll go back, and then we can touch each other, and just touching each other without words is a story.
Beautiful.
Look at each other eye through eyes is a story, right? What has the COVID has done? It has forced us to view from home. That's it. And the technology of home viewing has gone up because the investment of that has gone up. So will we view more theatrically? That's become the big question. Will movie theaters ever come back? I think that what will happen is already happened is that the technology of home viewing is so high, but let's also remember technology of home viewing is a little different in a way. We have 800 million cell phone connections, and we are a nation of not everybody has a TV at home. There's one TV to the whole family, right?
Yes,
Unlike
absolutely.
West here,
True.
and we live in smaller nations, so people will go out and they'll go out with their cell phones and form little groups and then together see it together, right? So the technology of delivery of content, whichever form content takes place, has fundamentally changed. It's taken away from, but will people stop going to the theaters? No, but the technology of delivery of content, not just home viewing, viewing on my phone, viewing on little clusters of people everywhere. I keep saying, you're paying your chowkidar for not doing his job. You go, what your chowkidar really is doing outside is watching movies on his phone or her phone.
Yes.
Right? So the technology has allowed us and has explored that idea. So theatrical will have a big problem coming back. But then in India, there are only 9,000 theaters. So we're not talking about
Yeah.
big business anyway. And the theaters are too expensive for 90% of our population. They'll always watch movies on home anyway. But what has happened really is the technology of home delivery of content has increased vastly, huge strides in that. And people have got used to that. But, teenagers will go to a cafe and all meet at a cafe and watch something together on their phone. So it's not just in one system. But yeah, we are fundamentally sharing. All creation is about sharing, connectivity. So holding hands, looking to each other's eyes, embracing. I remember when my daughter was born, I would take her and ask her constantly to touch trees, touch nature, touch leaves, touch that, because touch in itself is perception.
It
It's not.
is. It is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of our five senses.
So before I close, Shekhar, tell us a little about the new story you're telling the world. You're already in the middle of 80% of completion. I know you're not going to give away what it is, but
No, yeah, I've not ever done a film that is romantic. It's a romantic film.
oh,
I would say it's about that. every film is political, psychological, mythical. So it's a romantic comedy in a way. I've never done that before. But then when I look back at Masoom, there were so many comic moments. It was, in a way, a romantic comedy with
And Mr. India, it was the most magical romance, despite the guy being invisible. I think it's one of the most romantic pieces of our absolutely epic in the Hindi film history.
so what I'm doing is another human story, really, and it's a very funny human story.
More power to you, Sheikha Kapoor, and the revealing part of the chaos that you do so well. Keep telling stories, and what a joy it's been speaking to you in the middle of this tremendously hectic schedule that you have. All I'm going to say in the end is that Maya Angelou very famously said once, there are a billion stories storming inside of us. If they will not get them, if we won't get them out, they will storm us. So keep storming us with great stories, and thank you so much. And congratulations and all the best for your new film. And keep being non-linear and
Yeah.
keep us immersed with your part of creativity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vani. Thank you very much. And thank you.
Thank you, Shekhar.
Thank you, Shekhar and Vani, for this insightful session, which threw up many questions as well as answers. Thank you, Namita Gokhale, for curating this interesting session. And a big thank you to all our wonderful, attentive audience. All our sessions will be available to view later on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Once again, we would like to thank all our advisors and partners for generously supporting us. We hope you all enjoyed this conversation and will stay tuned for the next session, Extending the Novel, Fiction, Non-Fiction and Translations. Adam Fools, Kanan Sundaram, Melis Fredentel and Rodan Ali Galidi in conversation with Sambudha Sen, organized by Cultural Relations Platform CRP, which is an EU-funded project in collaboration with the Jaipur BookMark. Thank you once again. And now we present an interesting reading from the JBM Shots series.